Syracuse has beaten UConn 5 consecutive times, but this might be UConn's best chance at an upset.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into this Locked On crossover edition. I'm Jackson Holzer, the host of Locked On Syracuse, joined by the host of Locked On UConn Huskies, new to the network, Mike Manansti. Welcome to the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. And on today's show, we're giving our game predictions for Syracuse and UConn this Saturday at noon Eastern inside the JMA Wireless Dome. We're also going to learn about Syracuse. We're also going to learn about the UConn Huskies in this one from our experts. All that and more here on today's edition of Locked On Syracuse and Locked On UConn. Now, before we get into everything, this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Just like there's more to every player, more dedication, more attention to detail, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Stay tuned later in the episode for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time today for this crossover edition here. Let's go over UConn, shall we? Because Jim Mora, he takes over in 2022, and UConn at that point, forgive me, they were a mess of a football program. How would you assess the job that Jim Mora has done so far?
Yeah, Jackson, thank you for doing this, man. This is a big spot for UConn on Saturday there at Syracuse. And Jim Mora has done a very good job. He inherited a program that was sort of wondering where it would go next. Could they make the next step with NIL money looming? A basketball program that's an absolute powerhouse on the men's and women's side. How is the football going to sort of catch up to the basketball? Could they be on equal footing? They're not there yet, but he's established, I would say, sort of a real legitimacy with this program, recruiting-wise, transfer portal, has gotten some NIL money involved. He's not, winning big-time bowl games yet. It was a good bowl win at Fenway against the new Bill Belichick, old Bill Belichick team, North Carolina, whichever you want to call it. But he's done a really good job, and he has made this a very respectable team pretty quickly there in East Hartford.
UConn has made a bowl in 2 of his first 3 seasons since taking over in 2022. Syracuse fans know by now UConn's top wide receiver, Skyler Bell, potential future NFL player. By the way, folks, the NFL starts tonight. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. But we're talking about college football here. Skyler Bell, we all know about him. He's great. He's fantastic. And he was phenomenal against Syracuse last year. But who else on the outside for you do you think needs to step up for UConn?
Yeah, and Skyler Bell's interesting, Jackson. He sort of ties into Jim Mora Jr. He had a great year, transferred from Wisconsin, played at a high level, entered the transfer portal. Jim Mora said Michigan came calling with $500,000 of NIL money, and he stayed. So that's an example of what Jim Mora has done for this program, what the NIL program has done for UConn. I don't think it's the guys on the outside. I really do think if they are able to bottle up Skyler Bell, it's about the running backs in the backfield. It's going to be about Cam Edwards. It'll be out Mel Brown. And I think if most people from the outside would tell you that if they had their way, they'd run a lot of read option and run the ball with those guys. Edward able to bounce to the outside. Mel Brown, nice change of pace. Those were guys that had huge games. Only 6 carries for Cam Edwards. He averaged almost 20 yards a carry against Central in that opener. Brown can hit with that change of pace. I think those 2 guys are very important. And one guy I'll keep an eye out on in this game, a guy by the name of Terrence Smith, a young wide receiver for UConn. He actually had an 81-yard touchdown run, got called back of a holding, only got credit for a 7-yard play. Being there in East Hartford, it was explosive. He looked as fast as Skyler Bell has looked this year. So I think if Bell is bottled up by the Syracuse defense, look for the running backs and don't be shocked that they try to get the ball to Terrence Smith at some point. He's an explosive playmaker in the waiting for this UConn team.
Got it. Now, switching gears to the defensive side of the ball. Now, it's unfortunate for UConn that defensive back Malachi McClain, he will not play Saturday. He is arguably UConn's top defensive back. How big of a loss is this for UConn? And a follow-up after will be, how do they plan on replacing him?
Yeah, I'm not sure they can in the short term. He's such an impact player as a sophomore for this team. This is the one area where UConn this is the mismatch, I think, in this game on Saturday. They only have a couple of guys over 300 pounds on that defensive line. One guy, in fact, over 300 pounds. Kind of a small defense. They've tried to go this 3-3-5 defensive scheme. They got pushed around a little bit even by Central last week. They missed some tackles last week against Central. And I do think that in the middle, Taekwon King is the guy who you're going to notice stand out. He had 8 tackles last week. Sort of flies around the middle of that defense, a key for what they want to do. Tackling is going to be so big. And McClain being out makes so many plays back there. I'll be curious to see if Syracuse is able to exploit that because he's such an impact player for them. And defensively, that is the question for this team. Only 2 returning starters, right? So they were a good defense a year ago, always been kind of a defensive run-the-ball team. They're, I won't say doing it on a fly, but there's a lot of new faces, man. And I think if Syracuse is able to make plays, it'll be on the offensive side because this defense, little undersized, and they struggle tackling in week 1.
I think what helps UConn a little bit is that this is not week 1 for them. You get to get all the kinks out in week 1 against Central Connecticut. You get your free win against an FCS opponent. You get to feel good about yourselves. You get to build that continuity. So if there's any miscommunication, Syracuse also had some missed tackles against Tennessee last week. So that's something that they're going to look to correct as well. But still, big loss with no Malachi McClain in this one. Mike, is there anything else you'd like to add about the UConn Huskies trying to pull off an upset here against Syracuse?
Yeah, I want to get your take on this coming up in a few minutes, but this is like, I wonder if Syracuse fans recognize that that's a huge game for UConn. Like coming off that bowl win a year ago, there is legit buzz. You mentioned that week 1 game against Central. There were 37,000 plus in East Hartford to watch that game. If you take out the power conferences, the Big Four, the number 1 attended game in college football in week 1 was in East Hartford, Connecticut, at the old airfield there at the Rent. Like the fans had bought in. There's a buzz for this offense. They put up 638 yards. That was a school record in week 1. And you're starting to hear the buzz of how many games they win in a row. Can they get to 6-0 against Boston College? Can they make a high-level bowl game? Like this is going to go a long way to deciding just how high the trajectory is for UConn football. I got to admit, I did not expect to feel this sort of buzz heading into week 2, but the way they played in week 1, the offensive yards they put up, this is a big game for UConn. I don't know if it's a big game for Syracuse, and we'll talk about that coming up, but like going in, this team's got some buzz in East Hartford, and I think people are amped to see what happens at noon in upstate New York.
I can absolutely see it being a big game for UConn. I've been talking about that all week and how UConn, it feels like for the first time in quite a while, legitimately believes that they can beat Syracuse. And the odds makers are saying it too. 6.5 point favorite at home. I mean, you play that at a neutral site, it's a field goal spread.
Well,
you play that at UConn,
add this into it.
UConn
the game started 8.5 or 9. And so the when the money has come in, and our friends at FanDuel track this all week, the money has come in, and it's come in heavy on UConn. People are betting UConn and taking the points. They're a chic underdog pick this week to go on the road and win this game.
Well, this used to be, no offense, a circled win for Syracuse on the schedule. Not anymore. Not anymore. I think Syracuse definitely has to be on its A game in order to knock off a very confident UConn Huskies team. Now, coming up, we'll learn a little bit about Syracuse. So stick with us here on this Locked On crossover edition, Locked On Syracuse and Locked On UConn. Hey, Locked On Syracuse and Locked On UConn fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes. And you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now by using my limited time code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. This is Mazda's Moving the Game Forward, brought to you by those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it, because these moments do more than win. They push what's possible. They remind us to go that extra yard, shift into that extra gear, and keep moving the game forward. For Syracuse, how about Yasin Willis with 3 touchdowns against the Tennessee Volunteers in week 1? Quite an opening start for Yasin Willis, the true sophomore running back. And how about UConn with that throttling over Central Connecticut? Styler Bell was terrific. 4 catches, 135 yards, and 2 scores. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved.
Crossover edition. Locked on UConn, Locked on Syracuse. Mike Manansky, Jackson Holzer counting down to UConn and Syracuse. It's not a big basketball game. It is a big football game, certainly for the UConn Huskies. We'll find out how big of a game it is for the Syracuse team. Jackson, I want to start with the Syracuse offense and what you saw in week 1. Wholesale changes in the backfield at the quarterback position. I know defensively it was a struggle, but how about the offense in week 1 for Syracuse? What are they trying to do week 2 against UConn? What's their goal against this Connecticut defense?
Same old, same old. They're going to come out throwing just like they usually do. Now, Fran Brown, the head coach, he did mention how he wants to get Yasin Willis more involved as well, and he gave him 23 carries in the season opener. But I imagine against a UConn secondary that's not going to be with their top defensive back in Malachi McLean, Syracuse might throw this ball 40 to 50 times with Steve Angeli. Wow. And I would not be surprised if Syracuse put up a lot of points. Yes, they had a lot of guys leave in the offseason. A lot of talent goes on in the NFL, which is pretty rare for Syracuse football in recent days to have that many players get looks into the NFL.
Sure.
But at least in week 1 against a very tough Tennessee defense, the offense was a bright spot. It was a positive. They put up 4 touchdowns against them. 4. And I didn't think going into the game they were going to put up 4 touchdowns, but they did. Steve Angeli, for the most part, he looks solid. I think the numbers kind of do him dirty a little bit because at times his receivers were covered. You're going up against Tennessee. That's just what happens. You have to force a few balls in there, and it leads to incompletions. But overall, this is a very well-balanced Syracuse offense. And this UConn defense is going to be, I think, a little different than Central Connecticut on Saturday.
Yeah, Joe Fagnano, the quarterback, the 7th-year quarterback for UConn, played at Maine, now in his 7th year of eligibility at UConn. I'm going to call him a game manager, Jackson, but it's a read option look. Don't make mistakes. Get the ball to your skill players. When you watch Steve Angeli at that quarterback position there in Syracuse, break down his game, and you said throwing 50 times. Are we talking about a guy, people have not seen him on the run? Is he a pocket passer? What do we expect to see on Saturday?
Well, I wouldn't sit here and call him Lamar Jackson. He's got a little bit of legs to him, but for the most part, I wouldn't say he's a statue, but how about somewhere in between, right? He can move, but that's not necessarily the best part about his game. What Syracuse is interesting at is this. They love to throw the ball, but they also are incredible with time of possession. And that includes in week 1 against Tennessee. Ever since Jeff Nixon has taken over as the offensive coordinator of Syracuse, they throw the ball a ton, and they somehow lead in time of possession seemingly every week. The big reason for that is they love to utilize a short passing game. You're going to see a lot of screens, bubble screens. You're going to see guys leak out in the flat, and you're going to be wondering why there's no one within 5 to 10 yards of him. Syracuse hit that play a number of times against Tennessee. It did get burned at one point with an interception by Steve Angeli. But for the most part, it's a short to intermediate passing game. Steve Angeli is going to be trying to make a lot of his decisions pre-snap. A lot of it is predetermined. You know where you're going with the football. So if you're UConn, it's about figuring out what his first read is going to be pre-snap. Now, Jeff Nixon, to his credit, he does a great job of kind of disguising what's coming. It's very difficult to know precisely what Syracuse is going to do on any given play. So I would say for UConn, it's about just like how Steve Angeli is trying to figure out what his first read is going to be, because that's where he's likely going to go with the football. That's just how the offense is run. UConn, you got to try to force him to his second and third option. If you can do that, maybe, just maybe, you'll have a chance to kind of slow down this Syracuse offense a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting you talking about them coming out and throwing the football, Jackson, so much. Jim Morris said in his press availability this week when they went back and watched the Central tape, he called the defense for UConn disappointing. And having watched that game live, like, they got pushed around a little bit. They missed some tackles. I assumed you'd come on here and tell me that it was Yasin Willis and pound the football. Because what Jim Morris said was, if I watch this tape, I'm Syracuse coach, I'm going to run it against my UConn team. That's what I would do. And so you're saying they're going to pass. I'll be curious to see if they saw what Jim Morris saw on the tape, and he got 20 plus carries at Willis in week 1. If he's asked to be a workhorse again, is he that type of player?
He absolutely is. And when I say I think Syracuse is going to come out throwing, that's not necessarily what I want them to do. It's just what I think they're going to do. That's pretty much what they have been since Jeff Nixon has taken over. And I'm not going to sit here and criticize him because Syracuse last year was one of the top offenses in the country. I think they're going to be a very good offense again in 2025, even with all the new personnel out here. But absolutely, the default play has got to be go attack the line of scrimmage. Against Tennessee, Syracuse was not going to win the line of scrimmage on either side of the ball against them. It's Tennessee. They're big, they're mean, they're physical, they're experienced. But UConn? You got to be able to handle UConn at the line of scrimmage at least somewhat, at least better than what they showed against Tennessee. So by default, I would say, run the ball. Run the ball until they make you stop, until they stop. Because Yasin Willis is a big physical running back, and he is shiftier than he was last year.
Defensively last year, Syracuse was 91st in some defensive metrics in terms of yards, 91st in scoring per game defensively, in the hundreds in terms of yards allowed per game. I heard you talk about this earlier this week on your show. Missed tackles again were an issue against Tennessee. It's clear to say this defense right now is the big question mark for Syracuse football.
110%, whatever you want to call it. It's above 100% with this defense. I have full faith in the offense that they're going to be able to put up points. They're going to give your team a chance to win. They might not be able to put up 50 or 40, but they're going to probably give you 30 to 35 at minimum when they're playing against a team that's not Tennessee. The offense is fine, and special teams was the big weakness last year, even bigger than the defense. No special teams miscues in week 1 against Tennessee. That was good. They have a new special teams coordinator, all good. Yeah, defense is a big concern. Tackling is definitely a big concern. But, Mike, it's not just about the missed tackles. Derek McDonald, the linebacker of Syracuse, he said it's about essentially the impact of the missed tackles. It's not having enough guys swarm the ball carrier, where if one player misses a tackle, it goes from a 2-yard play to a 70-yard play. Missed tackles are going to happen. If it's in midfield and a 2-yard play becomes a 4-yard play because, your defensive lineman missed a tackle, but now your linebacker comes in to make it, you can live with that occasionally. This is football. Those guys on the other, we used to say in college that, they're Division I athletes, but now I'm going to sit here and say they get paid too. They get paid to break tackles, right? Cam Edwards and Mel Brown, they're out there to try to break tackles. They're not playing to get tackled right away, right? But we even saw last year, when these two teams play. Cam Edwards on a 4th and 1 at his own 29 gets the ball. He has the first down. Okay, he's going to get it. Fine, whatever. Syracuse can't get the stop and pretty much put the nail in the coffin early in that game. But then he spins away. It's a 71-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. So it's not just about the missed tackles that they have to clean up. It's the fact that how come when there's a missed tackle, it seems like every time it's a big play.
So I think this is a big game for UConn fans. They're excited for this game. There's some positive momentum. Take me inside the head of the Syracuse fan into this game. You lose week 1, but offensively make some plays. How does Syracuse fan feel heading into this one Saturday at noon?
I think the casual Syracuse fan may not understand how much of an improved UConn program this is. And that's what I've been trying to say throughout the entire week, which is that this is no longer a circled win. Like Syracuse, you have to take this team seriously. If you don't take them seriously, you will lose. They will walk into the JMA Wireless Dome confident, and they will beat you. So we pretty much know by now that, this UConn team can actually win. As far as the stakes of this game for Syracuse, it's a must-win game if they want to make a bowl in 2025. They got a tough schedule coming up. They're going to play Clemson on the road. They're going to play SMU on the road. They're going to go at Miami. They're going to go at Notre Dame. Those are all going to be very difficult games to win. They're going to go at Georgia Tech. They're going to have ACC games at home as well. Their only gimme on the schedule is Colgate on Friday night after this. That's it. Every other game is technically losable. So if you're Syracuse and you're trying to find a path to how they can get to 6-6, maybe even more than that, 7-5, 8-4, whatever you want to say about them, You got to beat UConn at home. So this is absolutely a must-win game for Syracuse football.
I'm pumped. UConn fans and Syracuse fans do not like each other. UConn feels good about the program. It's a must-win for the Qs if they want to be a bowl team. This should be a fun one Saturday at noon. Let's come back here in a second in this crossover edition. Locked on UConn, Locked on Syracuse. Let's make some predictions that whether they're right or wrong, we get to make them on this show. We'll do it next. Thursday, football is here, almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on who delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players deliver when it mattered the most. Let's break it down. For UConn, pretty simple. Skylar Bell, 4 catches, 135 yards, 2 touchdowns, 80 yards out, 12 yards out. He was awesome. For Syracuse, Yasin Willis. You heard Jackson talk about him, right? Didn't win the game, but he carried the ball 20 times. He scored 3 touchdowns. When the pressure was on, these guys came through. No hesitation, no delay. If you've been watching week after week, performance not a fluke for Skylar Bell, and certainly looks like Yasin Willis, a player to watch for Syracuse. And just like Bell and Willis, they delivered for UConn and Syracuse. DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th.
Locked on crossover edition. Locked on Syracuse. Locked on UConn. I'm Jackson Holzer. That's Mike Manansky, the host of Locked on UConn. I'm the host of Locked on Syracuse. We've learned about UConn. We've learned about Syracuse. We have laid out the stakes for each team. UConn legitimately having hope in this game for the first time in quite a while against Syracuse. And for Syracuse, they got to win this game if they want to make a bowl in 2025. So, Mike, I'll start with you. What is the biggest key for a UConn upset?
Big plays offensively. They've got to make big plays. They did it early and often against Central. They scored from 80 out, 12 yards out, 20 out. They had an 81-yard touchdown that was called back. UConn has explosive playmakers. They have Skylar Bell. They have Cam Edwards. They have Mel Brown. Terrence Smith, a sleeper in this game. I'm not sure that Joe Fagnano and the offense can get the ball matriculated down the field with 10, 12, 14 play drives. If they're going to score under Gordon Samus, offensive coordinator, it has to be through big plays. So if UConn is going to go there and win, they're a 6.5-point dog. They've got to make big plays explosively. To me, that is the key in this game because defensively, they're going to give up yards. They're going to give up points. You better be able to match that with explosive plays. If they do that, they can win this game against Syracuse. How about on the Syracuse side, Jackson? What's their key to holding serve at home and, as you said, winning a must-win game against these Huskies?
Syracuse is the favorite team. I think Syracuse should go out and win this game against UConn. They have more talent on paper than UConn. But, you know, the best team on paper does not always win. And sometimes the best team on paper loses because they give the other team freebies. So Syracuse, their biggest key to holding serve at home and getting this must-win game, no gifts to UConn. Make UConn beat Syracuse. Don't let Syracuse beat itself. If we have to come on here on Saturday and say, you know what, the UConn Huskies are just a better team than Syracuse, it's going to drive me nuts. It's going to drive me crazy. I'm going to have to tip my cap, though, and say, you know what, so be it. They're better. But my goodness, you do not want to see me. You do not want to tune in if Syracuse is beating itself with dumb penalties, miscommunication on the offensive line, because against Tennessee, the offensive line actually held up when they all understood their assignments. And I'm willing to give them a pass because it was week 1, brand new offensive line, very good Tennessee front out there. But there was a lot of miscommunication as well, which led to free rushers. And I don't care who you're going up against. If you have miscommunication, that's going to lead to free rushers on anyone. And I'm sorry, UConn linebackers, UConn defensive linemen can also sack Steve Angeli. Like that can happen, right? These are Division I football players that are also getting paid. So if you're Syracuse, you cannot give them any gifts. You can't give missed tackles. And if you're going to have missed tackles, limit the impact of them. 2-yard play becomes a 4-yard play. Fine. But no more 2-yard play, negative 4-yard play becomes 47-yard run. at the end of the half. That simply cannot happen for Syracuse to win this game against UConn.
All right, so when you go on Saturday and recap all things Syracuse and UConn, they're going to play at noon on Saturday there in your building. Give me a prediction. What will you be talking about? What's the final score in this game on Saturday afternoon?
I think, honestly, it's going to be similar to Tennessee, where we're going to have a lot of questions still about this defense, because I think that this defense will allow some points to UConn. They did last year against UConn, but the Syracuse offense going up against a little bit lesser of a defense than Tennessee last week, they will be able to outscore their problems on defense. So I am picking Syracuse to win this game, and I think they're going to score 40. So we'll go 42-33. A weird score, but 42-33 inside the dome.
I like the way you said that. And actually, it's kind of funny because I was thinking the same thing. Like, if UConn's going to win, they're going to have to outscore like their defense. Like, they're going to have to score enough points because their defense is going to give up. I didn't have that as a higher scoring game because I was factoring in something you had said earlier and something I've noticed with these Syracuse offense. Like, they do have these long drives. And I do think they can, against an undersized defense of UConn, if they want to, they can control the ball a little bit. It's a short week for them. They have Colgate on Friday. I wonder if they can run the football early and establish that run against UConn. They might try to run it more. But I think offensively, UConn can make plays. I think that Gordon Samus, the coordinator, kept something in his back pocket. Skylar Bell didn't play in the second half of that game. I think there's more to this UConn offense. I think they put up a record number of yards in week one, and they might not do that again on the road in Syracuse, but they can do enough offensively to make plays. And I believe in this offense, not as much as you do. You have a high scoring game. It's one of those things where you hear it. I may be way off. I have it as a tight one, 30-28. UConn wins the game outright. They certainly, if they don't win, I think they're going to cover the 6.5 points, courtesy of FanDuel. You've seen all week the money come in on UConn. I think it's been smart money with the Huskies, but I think just enough offense. Bell and Edwards make just enough plays, and that must-win game for Syracuse is a loss, and they are just sleepwalking into a Colgate game on Friday. I didn't realize
it's not going to be a fun Colgate game on Friday for Syracuse if they lose to UConn. The one thing I'll say about your prediction is I would be surprised if Syracuse scored less than 30. So I think in order for UConn to win this game, I think the threshold has to be 35 at minimum, which they can do because I don't really have a lot of confidence.
24 last year. It was a good game last year, 31-24.
Exactly. But I don't know. I think it's going to be a little bit more high scoring. I have faith in this Syracuse offense. Not as much in the defense, but the offense will be able to outscore their problems. Mike, on the other hand, he's picking an upset with UConn beating Syracuse 30-28 on a last-second field goal.
No, Syracuse has the ball late. They're driving with a chance to get there. They get some bad turnover, clock runs out. But Syracuse has a chance to win, and they can't get it done. And UConn holds on in the end.
See, you had me, but all you had to say is miss field goal because field goal kicking is definitely a concern for Syracuse. But we did not get to see that in week one against Tennessee. But anyways, that's Mike Manansky, the host of Locked On UConn. I'm the host of Locked On Syracuse, Jackson Holzer. Thank you all so much for tuning into this Locked On crossover edition. And hey, since you've already made it this far in the podcast and you want to show your support, please feel free, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Helps both these channels grow to reach all our awesome fan bases, even though these two fan bases, let's face it, we don't really like each other very much. But you know what? Show some love, show some support. And everyone, it's going to be a great game on Saturday.